Scientists say that a snow drought likely contributed to that deadly avalanche and say the risk is still high for another one.
So this is dive training, and we're going to be going out kind of at a moderate depth, not too.
For thousands of years, Lake Tahoe kept its secrets in the dark. Not metaphorically, literally. At over 1,600 feet at its deepest point, sunlight never touches the bottom. No currents stir it, no storm reaches it. The cold down there hovers just above freezing, all year, every year, in total blackness. It is one of the most preserved, undisturbed environments in North America. And for generations, almost no one had ever seen what lies beneath it. Then the water began to disappear. Drought gripped the American West. Snowpack thinned. Rivers that fed the lake slowed to a trickle. And as the shoreline retreated, inch by inch, foot by foot, it exposed things that had not seen daylight in decades. Boat holes, old docks, debris fields no map had ever recorded. And then divers went looking for more. What they found was not a myth. It was not folklore whispered by lakeside locals about a creature in the deep. It was something colder, and in some ways far more disturbing, because it was real, it was documented, and authorities had known about parts of it for years without telling the public everything. Search and rescue teams, environmental researchers, and independent divers descended into a lake famous for its beauty and began mapping a hidden world of wreckage, remains, and unexplained anomalies preserved almost perfectly by the icy, oxygen-starved depths. Some of what they encountered has never been fully explained. Some of it officials have chosen not to discuss in detail, and some of it raises a question that has quietly followed Lake Tahoe for over a century. How much of what has gone into this lake has ever truly come back out? This is the story of what receding water revealed and what still remains hidden in the dark. Lake Tahoe sits on the border of California and Nevada, formed roughly 2 million years ago through volcanic and tectonic activity. It is the largest alpine lake in North America and the second deepest lake in the United States, reaching a maximum depth of approximately 1,645 feet. Its water is famously clear, in part because the lake has very little inflow of nutrient-rich sediment, and because much of its water is extremely cold year-round, often hovering near 39 degrees Fahrenheit, even in the depths during summer. The lake's basin has been surveyed multiple times using sonar and submersible technology, notably by researchers from the University of California, Davis, through the Tahoe Environmental Research Center, which has studied water clarity, temperature layers, and lakebed geology for decades. Historically, the region has drawn wealthy tourism since the late 1800s, when railroads and steamship lines connected the lake to Gold Rush-era commerce. Numerous shipwrecks, sunken barges, and abandoned structures from that era are known to rest on the lakebed, some documented by maritime historians. Because of Tahoe's extreme cold and depth, several drowning victims recovered from the lake over the decades have shown unusually slow decomposition, a documented phenomenon discussed in regional news coverage and by search and rescue divers who have noted that the near-freezing, low-oxygen environment can preserve remains far longer than typical freshwater lakes. This is not universally true of every recovery, and decomposition rates depend on depth, temperature layering, and time elapsed. Lake Tahoe is also home to one of the more enduring pieces of American lake folklore, Tahoe Tessie, a creature said by local legend to inhabit the lake's depths. There is no scientific evidence supporting the existence of any such creature, and most historians treat it as a 20th century tourism legend rather than an ancient tradition with verifiable origins. The legend is real as a cultural artifact. The creature itself is not established as real. The renewed interest in Tahoe's depths coincided with an expansion of underwater mapping technology. Side-scan sonar, previously used mainly for large-scale environmental surveys, became more accessible to smaller research teams and even hobbyist dive groups. This allowed far more detailed imaging of debris fields than had been possible in earlier decades. Independent dive teams began publishing their footage. Some of it showed old aircraft wreckage, consistent with historical reports of small planes that went missing over the Sierra Nevada region decades ago and were never recovered. Some showed vehicles, believed by researchers to have gone through the ice during winter storms in past eras, before the lake's edges were as developed or as regularly patrolled. In the last few years, artificial intelligence tools have also entered this space, used not to detect ghosts or exaggerate mystery, but in a far more grounded, technical way. Pattern recognition software can process sonar imagery and flag shapes that resemble known object categories, vehicle chassis, aircraft fuselage, human forms, faster than a human analyst scanning hours of low-resolution footage. It is important to be precise about what this technology can and cannot do. AI image analysis of sonar data can help narrow down likely points of interest for divers to investigate, essentially acting as a triage tool. It cannot, on its own, confirm identity, determine cause of death, or replace a physical dive and forensic examination. Several of the AI-flagged anomalies that circulated in dive community forums were later found on physical inspection to be nothing more than sediment formations, old tree debris, or non-human material. This is a normal part of the process, not evidence of concealment. Where AI-assisted sonar review has had genuine value is in prioritization, helping search and rescue divers decide which of hundreds of potential targets in a debris field are worth the risk and cost of a physical deep dive, given Tahoe's extreme, near-freezing depths. As footage from receding shorelines and shallow dives spread online, public fascination grew quickly, and so did speculation. Social media accounts began circulating claims that authorities were hiding the true number of remains in the lake, or that entire sections of the lake bed were being kept off limits to divers to prevent discoveries from reaching the public. It is worth separating fact from rumor here. Local sheriff's departments in both California and Nevada have publicly acknowledged that Lake Tahoe has an unusually high number of unresolved missing persons cases relative to its size, largely attributed to its extreme depth, cold temperature, and difficult terrain, rather than to any alleged concealment. Search and recovery operations in extreme depths are also genuinely expensive and dangerous, which explains, without requiring any conspiracy, why not every reported disappearance results in a completed underwater search. As more divers ventured into newly shallow waters, tensions began to surface between hobbyist explorers and official search and rescue authorities. Some independent divers argued that low water levels created a rare opportunity for citizen-led discovery, and that agencies were too slow, too underfunded, or too cautious to investigate every anomaly found on sonar. Officials, for their part, have publicly urged untrained divers not to attempt deep or technical dives in Tahoe without proper certification, citing the very real dangers of cold water diving at extreme depth. Hypothermia, disorientation, and pressure-related injury are well-documented risks, not exaggerated hazards. There has also been scientific caution around interpreting sonar anomalies too quickly. Researchers involved in lakebed mapping have noted that Tahoe's unique colnic low-sediment, low-oxygen environment does preserve organic and manufactured material unusually well, but that preserved does not mean identifiable at a glance. Wood, metal, and even human remains can take on distorted, unfamiliar shapes after years underwater, and it is easy for both AI systems and human observers to misread ambiguous shapes as something more dramatic than they are.
It should also be stated clearly, there is no verified evidence of any organized cover-up by law enforcement or government agencies regarding Lake Tahoe's underwater discoveries. What has been alleged, mostly in online forums and independent video content, is that agencies have been selectively quiet about the total scope of unresolved cases, which agencies attribute to standard practice around unsolved investigations and respect for families, not concealment of anomalies. Any claim beyond this should be treated as allegation, not established fact. So, what is actually happening beneath the surface of Lake Tahoe? There are at least 3 ways to look at it. The conventional explanation is straightforward. Lake Tahoe's basin has simply accumulated the ordinary debris of over 150 years of tourism, transportation accidents, and drowning incidents, all unusually well preserved by cold, low-oxygen, low-sediment water. As drought lowered water levels, previously inaccessible areas became reachable, and modern sonar and dive technology allowed for more systematic discovery than was possible in the past. There is nothing supernatural or concealed about this. It is the natural result of geography, climate, and improved technology intersecting. The alternative theory takes it further. Some independent researchers and online communities argue that the true number of remains, wreckage, and unexplained objects in Tahoe is significantly higher than officially acknowledged, and that limited funding, technical difficulty, and bureaucratic caution have allowed the lake to become a de facto unmapped zone, not through active cover-up, but through decades of institutional neglect. In this view, the recent drought didn't create new mysteries. It simply exposed how little of the lake bed had ever been properly surveyed at all. And then there is the skeptical position. Skeptics point out that sensational claims about Tahoe's depths, mysterious objects, secret military connections, or supernatural creatures tend to spread far faster online than the more mundane, verified explanations. Most flagged sonar anomalies, when physically investigated, turn out to be natural debris, old tourism-era wreckage, or misidentified geological features. All three positions can be true in different measure. Technology improved, the lake bed was undermapped, and public imagination has, at times, run ahead of confirmed fact.
There is something quietly unsettling about a place this beautiful, holding so much unresolved history beneath its surface. Lake Tahoe has been photographed, painted, and marketed as a postcard-perfect symbol of natural beauty for over a century. Families vacation on its shores, newlyweds take boats out at sunset, and yet, at the same time, it has quietly served, without any intention or design, as one of the most effective natural preservation chambers in North America, holding on to pieces of lost history that would have decayed and vanished almost anywhere else. That duality is worth sitting with. It is not that the lake hid these things maliciously. It simply did what cold, dark, undisturbed water does. It kept things intact, waiting. For families who have lost someone to Tahoe's waters over the decades, this story is not really about mystery or spectacle. It is about the possibility, however slim, that a drop in water level or an improvement in sonar technology might finally bring closure to a question that has sat unanswered for years. At the same time, the drought that made these discoveries possible is itself a sobering reminder of a much larger, ongoing story, the changing climate of the American West, and how even something as seemingly permanent as an alpine lake responds to years of reduced snowpack and rising temperatures. The water receding to reveal old secrets is also a warning about what continued environmental change might expose next, at Tahoe and at other lakes like it around the world. What does this change? Perhaps nothing structurally. The lake will refill in wetter years, and much of what was exposed will disappear beneath the surface again. But it changes what we know, however incrementally. Each identified piece of wreckage, each resolved missing person case, each corrected sonar reading peels back one more layer of a story that was never really about monsters. It was about time, cold water, and how much can be preserved in the dark for far longer than anyone expects. The water will rise again, snow will fall, rivers will refill, and the shoreline will creep back over everything the drought once exposed. But the lake will still be there, 1,600 feet deep in places, cold and dark and undisturbed at the bottom, holding whatever it has not yet given up. Some of what divers found during those low water years has been identified. Some has been quietly returned to families who had waited decades for answers. And some, a sonar shadow here, an unexplained shape there, remains exactly what it was before anyone went looking, unresolved. So the question Lake Tahoe leaves behind is not really about creatures in the deep, or secret conspiracies, or terrifying discoveries dressed up for a headline. It is simpler, and somehow harder to sit with. How much of what disappears into deep, cold, silent water ever truly comes back to the surface, and how much of it is still down there right now, waiting for the next drought to reveal it? What do you think is still resting at the bottom of Lake Tahoe? Share your thoughts in the comments below.